that back!" Nina screamed. "Not until you do what I asked," I replied. "I don't want to." I opened her pencil case and broke everything that was inside. I snapped every single pen and pencil in two. My friends cheered and laughed while Nina looked like she wanted to cry. When I was done, I pushed it all off my desk and onto the floor. Nina rushed to pick up her broken things, and I tapped her on the forehead with my shoe. Before I continue my story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the notification bell too, or you'll miss out on the cool stories. Anyway, like I was saying, I was pretty much a terrible person. I only picked on the kids who looked different from me. If they were poor, that made it worse. I thought that poor people were so gross, I considered myself to be better than everyone else, especially the foreign kids. Me, on the other hand, I was blonde, tall, skinny, and absolutely gorgeous. I could get any boy I wanted. People like Nina had to try a little harder because she wasn't perfect like me. To make it better, I was rich. My dad owned 4 cars and my mom didn't need to work because he earned so much money. I got everything I asked for, and I looked down on anyone whose parents couldn't spoil them. How could you not have lots of money? Like, ew. I had no idea that the events which would follow that day would change my life forever. I went home after school, screamed at the butler for not having my favorite drink ready as I walked through the door, and stormed to my room to watch TV. Midway through my favorite sitcom, I heard a knock on my door. "What?" I shouted. "Open the door." It was my mom. I opened the door and she looked at me like she was disappointed. "What's wrong? You didn't get to spend Dad's money today or something?" I asked. She rolled her eyes. "Your principal called about your behavior. Apparently some kid named Nina told her mom you were being horrible to her. That foreign kid? Well, she deserved it." I replied, "I've already spoken to you about this type of attitude. I don't know who you inherited this from. It's like you're the spawn of Satan or something. Anyway, I was just letting you know that I'll be coming to school with you tomorrow," she said. I was angry. The next day, I was angrier. I sat in the principal's office and was distracted by his hideous face. He looked like Mr. Potato Head, except more like a potato and less like a head. He wore glasses, which didn't really match his face, and he had a hideous mustache, which moved up and down while he spoke. "Is that clear, young lady?" he said. "What?" I asked. "Didn't you hear anything I said?" "No, I was distracted by your ugly face. Has anyone ever told you you look like Lisa!" My mom screamed. She was as red as a tomato and looked like she was about to explode. She got up, held my collar, and dragged me out of the door. My friends saw and started laughing at me. "Mom, stop, you're embarrassing me," I said. "I'm about to do more than that. You'll see," she screamed. "Everyone, listen to me. Remember Lisa's face, because you all won't be seeing it for a very long time. I'm sorry to everyone she's hurt. I promise I didn't raise her like this." She shouted to everyone around who could hear. I wanted to die. She drove us home in silence. Then, when we got home, she said, "Pack your bags." "What? You're kicking me out? That's illegal. I'm only 15, I replied. "I'm not kicking you out. We're going on a little trip tomorrow," she said, then went to the other room and shut the door. I guess she thinks I need to calm down, so we're going on a mini vacation. It's great being rich, I thought. I packed all my favorite clothes and gadgets. I made sure I packed at least 2 power banks and had my phone and backup phone just in case. The next day, my dad wasn't around because he was on a business trip, so I didn't get to say goodbye. My mom asked his driver to take us to the airport, and we were off. She still seemed a bit upset about yesterday, so I tried to make conversation to cheer her up. "So, where are we going? Vegas?" I asked. "No," she said. "To the beach in Cali?" "No," she said again. It was clear that she didn't want to talk to me, so I told myself I'd just wait for the surprise. When we got to the airport, we checked in and she gave me a boarding pass. I read it and screamed. "We're going to India? Why?" I said. "Shut up. We're late. Let's go to the correct gate. Hurry," she replied. She started running and I followed. We went to our departure gate, gave our boarding passes, and got onto the plane. "I'll see you on the other side," my mom said. Then I realized she was going to be flying first class, but she bought me an economy ticket. "What the hell? I can't fly with the poor people," I exclaimed. She chuckled and walked away. I walked to my seat, which was between a huge sweaty man and a 5-year-old. It was awkward, but at least I had all my cool things. It was going to be a long flight. And it really was. That gross man fell asleep and started drooling, and the kid wanted to play with my iPad while my mom was probably enjoying cocktails and a beautiful view over in first class. I hated her. I fell asleep to forget my sadness, and when I woke up, everyone was standing. We had landed. I got up and walked to find my mom, who was nowhere to be found. I got off the plane and went through customs by myself. I figured I'd find her when we went to claim our luggage, but she wasn't there either. I found my bags and walked outside. I looked everywhere, but I couldn't find my mom. I didn't know what to do, so I took out my cell phone and tried to call her, then remembered I was in another country. When I raised my head and looked around again, I saw an Indian couple holding up a sign. It said, "Welcome, Lisa?" That can't be for me, I thought. Then the man looked at me and shouted, "Lisa, Lisa, over here, come." "Yes, that's the girl from the picture," the woman said. I looked around again for my mom, but she was nowhere to be seen. "Come, come," the woman said. I walked over to them because I had no choice. Maybe they were workers at the fancy hotel we were going to stay at. The man took my luggage and said, "It's about a 2-minute walk to our car." I followed, still very confused. When we got to the ugly car, he put my suitcase in the trunk and then sat in the driver's seat. His wife sat next to me in the back. So I haven't introduced myself. My name is Mrs. Cooper, but you can call me Anita, and this is my husband, Harish. We are so happy that you will be marrying our son, Sanjay, she said. "Oh, what?" I asked. "Your mother didn't tell you? She handed you over to our family so that you could marry our son. He's 2 years older than you are, but we will wait until you are 18 until we send you to live alone with him. For now, all of you will live with us, and I will teach you how to be a proper wife. I don't think you learned much about that in America," she said. "Is this some kind of joke? Where is my mom? I'm going to the police," I shouted. "Well, I'm actually a cop." Harish laughed. "It seems like your mother didn't explain that you sort of belong to us now, but don't worry, we are nice people. Here are the documents if you don't believe me," she said while handing me a folder. I opened the folder and recognized my mom's signature on several papers, which I didn't bother to read. "Oh, I nearly forgot she left you this letter," she said. "You saw my mom? Where did she go?" I asked, wanting to cry. "I don't know. Here," she said, handing me the envelope. I opened it and felt a bit sick. It was hard for me to read while Harish drove along the bumpy road. It read, "Dear Lisa, you've been a horrible person, and I'm honestly sick and tired of having to put up with your nonsense. Therefore, I'm wiping my hands of any obligation to take care of you. I found an advertisement online posted by this family who was searching for a suitable wife for their son. I think it's about time you met new people and had new experiences so you could stop being so shallow, insensitive, and overall awful. Mrs. Cooper will assign you your roles in the house, and you will learn to be a proper wife to Sanjay. Make sure you listen well and do all they say. Love, Mom." I was blinded by my own tears. I couldn't believe she would do something like this to me. After driving for about an hour and a half, we entered a small village. All of the houses were tiny, but the one they pulled up in front of was a bit bigger than the others. It was 2 stories high, but it was still much smaller than my mansion back home. "We're here," Anita smiled. I got out of the car and began walking towards the door. Then I thought, there's no way, absolutely no way. I'm going to live there with these people. I will find a way to escape, and I will make sure that when I get back home, my mom goes to jail forever, because there's no way this is legal. I turned around and began to run. I didn't know where I was running to, but I just ran and ran and ran. Harish ran after me, but he couldn't keep up. Apparently, I was running in circles because I ended up exactly where I started. Anita grabbed my arm and shoved me inside their house. "Don't you ever do that again," she screamed. "We will have to ground you. You will sleep here. I will lock the door and I won't let you out until you promise to behave yourself. I'm taking all your gadgets away too. Don't try to contact anyone," she said while shoving me in a dusty room. There were no tiles on the floor, and there was only a small bed with ugly sheets in the room. There was no bathroom attached like my room back home, but there was a tiny squatter in the corner. Ew, I thought when I sat on the bed and cried and cried. Later, Anita opened the door and put a tray of food on the floor. Then she slammed the door and locked it from the outside. I kept quiet for a few days because I had no idea what these people were capable of doing to me. Then one day, the door opened and Anita and Harish walked in. "We'd like you to meet your future husband, Sanjay," Anita said. "He's our lovely son, and starting tomorrow, you will learn how to cater his every need," Harish said. Sanjay walked in. Although they told me he was 2 years older than I was, he looked a lot smaller. He looked at me and rolled his eyes. "That's the best you could do?" he said to his parents. "I know she's not that pretty, but she will do. We can't send her back now anyway. You'll learn to love her," his mom replied. I felt so insulted. I was one of the prettiest girls I knew. They walked out and I went to sleep. The next morning, Anita woke me up at 5. "Get up, girl. You will learn how to make Sanjay's favorite breakfast today," she said. I got up and went to their kitchen for the first time. It was a small room, and they had one old fridge and a stove which looked like it would break down any moment. "Watch everything I'm doing, because tomorrow you'll have to do it all on your own," she said. It was so demeaning. I never even had to cook for myself when I was back home, and now I was being forced to learn how to cook for someone I never agreed to marry? Later, Anita made me sweep and mop the house. Then I had to dust all the books on their small bookshelf. The worst part was doing Sanjay's laundry because they didn't have a washing machine. I had to do it all by hand, and I had no idea what I was doing. "You're doing it wrong!" Anita shouted, and she tapped my hand. It hurt. Then I had to learn how to make Sanjay's favorite lunch and dinner. By the end of the day, I was exhausted. I went straight to my room to sleep. "No, it's not time for relaxing. You have to get to know your husband before the wedding, which is next week, by the way. I've bought your outfit and everything. Hurry up and do as you're told," Mr. Kapoor said whilst pulling me off my bed and pushing me into the living room where Sanjay was sitting. I refused to talk to him, and the next morning, Anita woke me up at 5 again to cook breakfast. I tried to remember what she taught me, but I got it all wrong. When I served Sanjay, he took one bite and threw the whole plate on the floor. "Clean up this garbage, because that's exactly what it tastes like," he said. I was so devastated, and I wanted to cry. I missed my beautiful life. Right now, I was nothing but a servant to a stupid boy I didn't want to marry. I realized I had been too hard on people for no reason. I wished I could go back to school. I'd say sorry to Nina for treating her so horribly. The day of the wedding came, and I was forced to wear a hideous outfit I hated. I spent the entire day crying. We had a typical Indian wedding, and they did things to me which I didn't quite understand. "Now you have to kiss him. You're officially married," Anita shouted. At that moment, I blacked out. I think I must have fainted. When I woke up, I was staring into my mother's eyes. I was on a hospital bed. "Ah, you're up. I hope I taught you a good lesson, you little monster. It was all a prank. I didn't marry you off, but if you continue to behave like a terrible person at school, I'm going to do it for real. Get up, let's go home," she said. Never before had I been so thankful to be pranked.
They say that having a hobby as a teenager keeps you out of trouble. But what happens when a hobby turns your entire life upside down? Hi, my name is Tiffany. Before I continue my story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. If you do, you will find $500 in cash soon. Trust me, it really works. I hear lots of stories about teenagers who don't love their parents, but my parents were the best. They have always encouraged me to try out new things. They motivate me to do better, and we can talk about anything. They are the main reason I tried out for my dance club, Dance with Attitude. My mom wasn't very close with her parents. Her mom died when she was 6, and she grew up with an abusive father. At age 16, she ran away and built herself from the ground up. She was never told that she was beautiful while growing up, so she created and sold beauty products for women. Even though my mother was a self-made millionaire, you would never believe it. We don't have the nicest cars or the most expensive clothes. My mother always told me to be humble because you never know where you might end up. My parents had one rule though. I wasn't allowed to post any pics of my mom online. Even though she had her own company, she paid someone to be the face of the company while she worked in the background. She said that she didn't want her father to find her, so she wasn't fond of social media. My mother, however, didn't mind me posting videos or pictures on social media since my grandfather didn't know who I was. My dad inherited a large inheritance from his grandfather, but he didn't want to give up his job. He loved what he did. You see, my dad was a travel agent and he enjoyed traveling. My mother was very supportive of his dreams and his job, just as he was of hers. Sometimes we even traveled with him. This time though, my dad traveled, and when he came back, he needed to be taken to the hospital straight from the airport. My mother and I arrived at the hospital. I sat outside his room while the doctor spoke with my mom. Dr. Smith said, "Mrs. Rose, we believe that your husband caught a bug from his last trip. We began running tests to see if anything would show up. His symptoms are unlike anything we have seen before." My mother came out of my dad's room and said, "Daddy will be fine. How about we do something fun this evening? It's been a while since the girls were over, so why not have a sleepover?" "Are you sure, Mom? I'm not sure if I'm up for company," I sighed softly. My mom placed her arm around my shoulder and squeezed me gently and said, "Your dad wouldn't want us moping around the house. We need to stay strong for him, okay?" I nodded. As soon as I got home, I called my friends and asked them if they wanted to come over to spend the night. I didn't mention anything about my dad being in the hospital since that might have put a damper on the atmosphere. My friends Sharon, Kimmy, and Daniela arrived at 6 p.m. We got snacks and sodas from the kitchen, and my mom ordered pizza and fried chicken. Even though we talk to each other every day, we never seem to run out of things to talk about. Shh, guys! Dancing with Teens is about to begin, Daniela said, waving her hands frantically, trying to get us to hush. Dancing with Teens was our favorite show. We always dreamed of representing our dance club on it, but it was a tough show to get on. The TV show host spoke.
Good evening and welcome to Dancing with Teens. My name is 𝗕𝗔𝗦𝗬𝗘𝗦. Tonight we got word that one of our teams will be unable to make it next week. It's tough luck for them, but a great opportunity for another team.
We decided to do a TikTok challenge. The team that creates the best TikTok video and emails it to us will win the spot to be on the show next week. We will post the winner this Friday at the beginning of our show. Good luck. My friends and I squealed with excitement. Did you guys hear that? I said excitedly. The gods have finally smiled their faces upon us, Kimmy said dramatically as she spread her arms open and looked up to the sky. We giggled. Okay, let's get down to business. Let's look for a great song and choreograph some moves down tonight, Sharon said. We all nodded. For the rest of the night, we practiced our choreography, and by midnight, we were set. We did the TikTok video and uploaded it to the email address given by Dancing with Teens. Now, all we had to do was wait. Finally, Friday arrived. My mom was still at the hospital with Dad, and I wasn't allowed to have friends over if she or Dad wasn't at home. We all logged into video chat and waited for Dancing with Teens to begin.
Good evening and welcome to Dancing with Teens. My name is 𝗕𝗔𝗦𝗬𝗘𝗦. Tonight, as promised, we will show you the TikTok video that won the challenge.
My friends and I sat glued to the TV, our excitement building. I held my breath as the video began to play. It was us! It was us! Shrieks from the other girls filled the room. We did it! I shouted and began to do a victory dance in front of the TV until I realized the mistake that I made. There was a picture of me and my parents on the background of the video, for all the world to see. I sank into the chair. I was mortified. Should I tell my mom? I have never kept anything from my mom before. I told my friends that I needed to go and cut off the call before they could say goodbye. I went to my room and waited for my mother to arrive. My eyes opened and I realized I must have dozed off. I checked my clock on the nightstand. It was 10:30 p.m. I walked to my parents' room and was about to open it when I heard my mom sobbing on the other side of the door. Now is not the time to tell Mom about the video. I will wait until she's in a better mood, I thought to myself, and walked back to my room. Hey, Mom, I said as I poured cereal into my bowl the next morning. Kimmy, Sharon, Daniela, and I got to be guests on Dancing with Teens. My mother looked up at me from the newspaper that she was reading. Oh my God, are you serious? I'm so happy for you girls, my mom said as she came over and gave me a kiss on my head. Your father would be so proud of you. We have to go to the studio next Saturday. Would you be able to take me? I asked my mom. Sure I would. I wouldn't miss it for the world. That week, the girls and I met at each other's homes and worked on our routine for the show. This was our big chance to make our dance club proud. By Saturday, my stomach felt as though it was going through a grinder. I was so nervous. Have fun, baby, my mother said as she dropped me off. I'll be back before you perform on stage, okay? Send my love to Daddy. I can't wait to see him later to tell him all about it, I said. My mom gave me a final wave before driving off. I went into the studio and met the other girls to prepare for our routine. Each group was given a space to practice before doing their routine in front of the judges. After about 30 minutes, I told the girls that I needed to get some water. As I was walking back from the water cooler, I noticed a man walking directly towards me.
Hi, are you Melissa Carr's daughter?
The man stopped in front of me and asked. No, I'm not, I said and tried to get past the man.
I'm sorry, my name is Isaac Burns. Your mom and I grew up next to each other. You look exactly like her. When I realized that you were going to be on the show today, I wanted to send something for Mel, he said, handing me a black photo album. I took the album and said nothing. The man nodded and walked away. I returned to my group. What's that? Sharon asked, looking at the album. Oh, nothing, I said as I placed the album into my book bag for safekeeping. Finally, it was time to perform for the judges. I looked up in the audience and found my mom's familiar face. She smiled and waved. That moment of being on the stage in front of the judges was surreal. We had 3 minutes to impress the judges with our routine, and impress them we did. We got called and moved on to the next round of the show. My mom and I chatted excitedly on the way to the hospital to see my dad. I need to get gas, my mom said as we approached the gas station. We pulled up to a pump and my mom hopped out of the car to pay. My phone rang and I went to my book bag to retrieve it so that I could shut it off. I saw the album and pulled it out.
Through all the excitement, I forgot that it was given to me. As I flipped through the album, I noticed that it was a wedding album. My mouth dropped open as I recognized the bride smiling next to her groom. It was my mom, and the groom wasn't my dad. Mom never told me that she was married before, I muttered to myself in amusement. When my mom hopped back into the car, I showed her the album. "Mom, what is this? Why didn't you tell me that you were married before?" I asked, searching her lips for the answers. "What?" my mom said as she snatched the album from my hands. "Where did you get this?" she asked. I told her about the man at the studio. "How did he know where to find me?" my mother said. Her face looked as though all the blood was drained from it. I told her about the TikTok video. I told her that I didn't realize that a family portrait was in the video until it was already sent to the TV show. "You ruined everything," my mom yelled at me. "We need to get out of town immediately." My mom exited the gas station and went to the opposite direction of the hospital. "Aren't we going to visit Dad?" I asked, looking back at the way we came. "We can't visit your dad now. We need to leave. Your dad will be okay," my mother said, her hands visibly shaking as her grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Mom, who was that man? Does Dad even know that you were married before him?" I asked. I needed answers to my questions. The man that handed me the album was way too young to be my grandfather. "Now is not the time for all these questions," my mother screamed at me. My mother never screamed at me. I watched my mom inhale deeply, and she spoke in a softer voice. "We are in danger. If we don't leave now, we may never be able to leave." "But I don't want to leave Dad," I cried. "I know, baby, but if you stay, they may harm you to get to me, and I wouldn't be able to live with myself if anything happened to you," my mother said. The tires of my mom's car screeched as she pulled up in front of the house. "Pack only what you need," my mom said as we got out of the car. "You have 2 minutes to meet me by the car." As I packed my bag, I thought, why didn't I check the video? All of this was my fault. "Tiffany, let's go," my mother yelled as she stood at the front door. I ran out of my bedroom and to the front door, and I silently said goodbye to my home as something inside me knew that I would never see that house again. While sitting at the airport, we were suddenly surrounded by police officers. "Melissa Blackman, you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Isaac Burns," an officer announced. I tried to hold on to my mother as the police dragged her away. I was taken to a foster home until my dad was discharged from the hospital. I tried asking questions about why my mother was arrested, but no one wanted to tell me. Searching the internet, I found out that my mother actually made her wealth by marrying wealthy men, then killing them off. They nicknamed her the Black Widow. The police never had enough evidence to convict her until Isaac Burns. She thought that she had killed Isaac. However, he faked his death and had been in hiding for the past 17 years. Police lost all leads as to where my mother was until a TikTok video surfaced. My mother and Isaac were still legally married, therefore my dad wasn't even her husband. Isaac was the man who had given me the photo album, and he must have done it as some sort of sick warning. I couldn't believe my mom would do something like this. She had seemed so sweet and caring, but I realized that all must have been an act. The way that she had screamed at me before proved that. My mother was evil. After 2 weeks after my mother was jailed, my father passed away. My father's family contested his will, and I got nothing. I had no friends in the foster home, as everyone called me the Black Widow's daughter. The next 2 years of my life were miserable. Kimmy, Sharon, and Daniela weren't allowed to talk to me. The only family I had alive was my mom. As soon as I was 18 years of age, I signed up for school. I studied psychology, and I wanted to understand why my mom did what she did. Over the years, I not only changed my name, but changed my look. My hair was now cut short and dyed red. My goal was to get the chance to work at the women's prison where my mom was incarcerated. I knew, however, that they wouldn't allow me to work there if they knew my mother was in the system. After 20 years, I finally made my way down the halls of the women's prison as Dr. Elizabeth Ignace. "So, Mrs. Burns, would you like some tea?" I asked as I looked at my mother. She had aged considerably during her time in the prison. "My mother and I have been having sessions for the past year." "I would love some," she nodded. About 15 minutes after drinking the tea, I watched as my mother doubled over in pain. She looked up at me as her nose began to bleed. I opened the door and shouted, "Guard!" before I knelt next to my mother and whispered in her ear, "I have waited 20 years for this. May my father finally rest in peace."
you.